Sabi ni Boss, types to na raw eh. Akala ko doon na sistema niyo. Pwede ka naman
Well, I think right now, Malacanang, the president and his advisors are looking very closely at the signals from the people. You know, in the recent survey, it is very clear that 84% of the Filipino people would like the president to take a stronger stand as far as the Hague ruling is concerned. That we want the arbitral tribunal ruling, especially with the dismantling of the so-called 9-dash line. And obviously, the people would like the president to take a stand on this. And to me, one way of showing the first opportunity, global opportunity to show this, is in the ASEAN meeting. This is a golden opportunity, and I think we should take advantage of this.
But so far, do you think the Philippines, as host, is actually taking advantage of that?
Well, as you said, I think they're still weighing it because there's also some pressure from China. You will recall that in the Cambodia, when Cambodia hosted this, there was a failure at first to issue a joint statement that would mention the South China Sea dispute, and it was through the shuttle diplomacy of Indonesia that the ASEAN came out with the joint statement. So in other words, there was pressure on the part of Indonesia, intervention on the part of Indonesia to come out with a joint statement, and I think Indonesia felt that it was necessary. So my take here is that it would be rather embarrassing if it would be another country or several other countries that would take the initiative of making sure that the South China Sea dispute is on the table.
And not the Philippines.
And not the
Supposedly we were the
Philippines.
ones who won.
Yes, we're the ones who won, and we're the ones. Occasional patrols there.
Now, given the other factors influencing this particular issue, do you think the Philippines, as ASEAN chairman this year, afford not to actually steer discussions or actually complete discussions when it comes to a framework document under its chairmanship?
Well, there will be a lot of questions. There will have puzzling response on the part of ASEAN, other players, and the whole world. The whole world will be watching. They'll be wondering what's happening. The other thing is I'm very worried that this might affect the settlement, the final settlement of the dispute. It might weaken our position because there's still some areas that are hanging there. And also the other countries, we need the support of the other countries in pressuring China to respect the ruling of the arbitral tribunal. But if we do not demonstrate steadfastness here, this kind of support might waver. Remember that when the Hague came out with the ruling, we got support from EU, from the US, from Japan, from India, from so many other countries.
And it seems we dropped the ball then.
Well, we sort of dribbled, not dropped the ball, but dribbled because we are looking at another way, the diplomatic, the overall geopolitical situation. I can understand also the priority of the president to engage China. But of course, territory is something that cannot be compromised.
Now, speaking of steadfastness, you have another ASEAN member in Vietnam, which is actually very steadfast and it's resolved to actually protect its claim, its territorial waters, especially in the face of challenges coming from China. As a neighbor of Vietnam, what can the Philippines learn from Vietnam's approach to the dispute?
Well, a lot. I've been wondering about Vietnam. I've always been mentioning that Vietnam is a very good example, a very good model for us to study because they have a longer history, maybe over 1,000 years of dealing with China. They've had some running battles, wars, skirmishes in the South China Sea, 1988, for example. But at the same time, they have handled China diplomatically. Hindi nabawasan yung diplomacy nila. They've exchanged visits at the highest level. In 2014, China attempted to deploy a $1 billion oil rig into their EEZ para sipsipin yung oil nila ron, no?
And Vietnam stood its ground.
Vietnam stood its ground. They met this Armada oil rig escorted by Chinese Coast Guard ships, fishing boats. They met them with their own fishing boats and Coast Guard ships. There was an encounter, water cannons, ramming. One fishing boat of Vietnam even sank. But after about 2 months of that kind of an encounter, watched by the entire world, China backed out, and they never came back. That was about 3 years ago.
Can we also do something like that? Given our experience in 2012, the Scarborough Show. We lost that standoff.
Yeah. That is something that we can study how they were able to do it, how to take a stand without harming in a big way the diplomatic relationship. Some people were looking at that in 2012, maybe sending a fleet of fishing boats because we had the advantage of proximity from Zambales, from Pangasinan. But I think there was an intervention on the part of the U.S. to make it more diplomatic, but somehow we lost in that face-off. That's already water under the bridge now.
Now let's talk about resources. The
Yeah.
Philippines has a bigger economy than Vietnam. Yet when it comes to resources, when it comes to perhaps spending and prioritizing, when it comes to territorial defense, it seems the Philippines is lagging behind Vietnam.
Yeah, I'm amazed. Vietnam is a very good comparison because in terms of population, we're almost the same. 103 million for the Philippines, in their case, 95 million. But in the case of the economy, our economy is much bigger. We have a $290 billion GDP. In their case, it's about 200 billion. In GDP per capita, we have about $2,600, maybe getting closer to 3,000. In their case, it's only about $2,000 per capita GDP. But in spite of that, I'm amazed that, look at this airport. I was there a few days ago, and I thought we had a better airport than Vietnam's airport, but this airport is just amazing. Look at the outside and the inside. I think their airport is much modern. I think they built this 2015. This is about 100% more modern than the airport that they have. So the other thing that amazed me, there's a bridge that you pass by this bridge on the way from the airport to the central part of Hanoi City.
8.3 kilometers.
Yeah, this is an 8.3 kilometer bridge, very long and very modern, built with funding from Japan. In other words, they were able to expand their ODA opportunities. So then this is a 1,200 kilometer north-south highway connecting Hanoi to Ho Chi Minh City. This is the Ho Chi Minh Highway. It's also quite amazing how they're able to do this.
For a lot of Filipinos, it's getting more and more frustrating if you see pictures like that. But to be fair with the present administration, I think they're going to spend some.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a record. I understand it's going to be a record, and we'll have a deluge of infrastructure projects before the end of President Duterte's term, which is well and good. Now, but the other amazing thing is that some people are wondering, can we mix defense and security requirements with economic development? Some are saying that it may be difficult to spend too much time, too much money on defense and security.
You have to choose
to
one.
sacrifice the economy. But in the case of, look at this, Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is very important to protect the EEZ. And look at the modern Coast Guard vessels that Vietnam has. There's not, we don't have anything better than this Coast Guard ship, the other ships that they have. And then this one is really very impressive. But in terms of defense, you know, they bought this Gepard class frigate, two of them, to the tune of about $350 million from Russia. Because to them that's very important. But the biggest expenditure that they have is this 6 submarines, Kilo-class submarines from Russia also. They spent about $3.2 billion. And right now, the naval strategists say that this could become the nightmare of the PLA Navy in the future, because this is quite...
No, I think the basic question is, what is Vietnam doing right, and what is the Philippines doing wrong when it comes to this particular area?
In the case of Vietnam, they just came from war. The Vietnam War with the US ended in 1975. They had the final reunification in 1976, and they were such an impoverished country until sometime in 1986, I understand, that they instituted economic reforms, and that started their economic rebuilding program. But while they were rebuilding, they also did not neglect their security, their defense. For example, they have 37 Sukhoi 27 fighter jets, also bought from Russia, and they have ordered, I understand, additional planes. This is the modern Sukhoi 30, also from Russia. They have missiles to protect themselves. They have this additional, this is the S-300 surface-to-air missiles. But as I said, they have balanced economic development, and that's the reason why they're progressing very rapidly. And look at this industrial zone that they have. Really quite impressive. And their products are very visible globally.
So
And
do you think it's just a matter of prioritizing?
Prioritizing, balance also, balancing security requirements, because they're facing a very aggressive country, China. In fact, their geopolitical situation is more precarious than ours, because China is the direct neighbor, land and sea. Now, in terms of exports, I was amazed at the statistics. I thought we were already an export-driven country until I saw the statistics of Vietnam. You know, our export is about $60 billion. The export, 2016, if I'm not mistaken, is about $160 billion. Almost 3 times bigger than our export.
And also in terms of foreign direct investments.
And well, first of the export, their #1 export market is the US. And that to me is very amazing, considering that they were fighting for 10 years, but they're able to market the products to the US, a former adversary, to the tune of about 26 billion or 27. And then their next biggest export market is EU. So here, you know, in terms of strategy, this is something that we can study. How can we improve our export position with respect to these 2 countries, the United States and also EU? Maybe, as I've learned, there's also a connection between diplomacy and foreign policy, and also economic policies. It's something that we must look at. In terms of FDI, yun, doon talaga magugulat ka. Our FDI 2015 was about $8.5 billion. The FDI reached $21 billion, almost 3 times. So how were they able to do it? That's I know there's so many reasons. So maybe they have a different economic structure, they have a different labor policy. But this is something that we must study if we can replicate what they have there.